At Thanksgiving, my mom said, "You're cut off from this family." So I cut them off first. Their mortgage, their cars, their trips, all gone in a week. A week later, they started begging for help. But Thanksgiving has always been a mess in our family, but that year it felt like they were all waiting for me to walk through the door just so they could finally shut it in my face. It started with a text from my older sister 3 days before. Just the time, the address, and a line that said, "Don't bring anything weird this time. No, please, no, how are you, and certainly no, we're looking forward to seeing you." But I went. Out of habit more than anything. And yeah, maybe a sliver of hope. I pulled up to the house I helped them keep. The same house my parents were on the verge of losing 3 years ago. The one I saved with a down payment and some legal maneuvering. But that little detail had long since been erased from everyone's memory. The moment I walked in, it was like I'd crashed a party I wasn't invited to. My nieces ran past me without saying hi. My sister barely looked up from her phone. My dad just nodded, then went back to talking to my brother about some backyard project I hadn't heard a word about. My mom? She walked straight past me to adjust the thermostat. I stood there with a homemade bourbon pecan pie in my hands, wondering if maybe I should just turn around and leave. But I didn't. I put it on the counter next to the 3 store-bought desserts someone else had brought. None of them touched. They'd set 10 places at the table. 10. I was the 11th. I ended up sitting on a folding chair that wobbled with a paper plate while everyone else used the good china. No one poured me a drink, no one asked me anything, and when I finally spoke up to mention something exciting that had happened at work, landing a 6-figure deal with a national brand, my brother made a joke about how Dolly always finds a way to bring up money. That was the moment I knew. I wasn't family to them. I was a resource. A wallet. A backup plan when things went wrong. And now, with everything calm and normal, they had no more use for me. Then it happened. Right as my dad started carving the turkey, my mom put down her wine glass and looked at me like she was staring through me. "You're cut off from this family." It wasn't loud, but it was loud enough. My sister gasped. My cousin snorted. I waited for someone to say, "Come on, don't be ridiculous." No one did. She went on about how I always isolate myself, how I never pitch in, how I act like I'm better than everyone. That I don't understand what family means. She said maybe I should stop coming to Thanksgiving if I can't be part of the family like everyone else. Then she said it again. "You're cut off." I left before dessert. No one stopped me. They didn't even know what they'd just done. Because in their rush to exile me, they forgot one thing. I held the strings. Their mortgage. I held the loan. Their car payments. On my business account. The lake house they loved to use every summer. In my name. Even my sister's student loans. I'd taken those on to protect her from default. The next morning I logged into every account. Froze the payments. Transferred property. Called my attorney. In 5 days, everything they relied on from me was gone. By Sunday the calls started. By Monday they were showing up at my office. And by the end of that week they were in full panic mode. But I wasn't finished yet. By Monday morning I'd already started hearing the cracks. First it was my dad calling twice in a row. Then my sister texted something vague like, "Are you seriously doing this right now?" No greeting, no explanation. Just like always, entitled and annoyed that things weren't going their way. By noon my phone was buzzing non-stop. 27 missed calls. Voicemails from my mom using that tone she always used when she wanted something but didn't want to say it directly. He kept saying I was being dramatic. Said we needed to talk like adults. That I was making a mistake and embarrassing the family. I didn't reply. What they didn't seem to understand was that this wasn't some impulsive meltdown. I'd waited years for this moment. Quietly absorbing every backhanded comment, every time they forgot to invite me, every time they said, "You just don't get it, Dolly," like I wasn't even one of them. So I stayed quiet. Watched it unravel in real time. By Tuesday I started getting calls from numbers I didn't recognize. One turned out to be the bank asking for my father. I told them I was no longer affiliated with the mortgage. Then the insurance company rang about a missed premium on the Tahoe, my sister's car. I reminded them she was the primary holder now. Then came the vacation mess. They had booked a luxury Airbnb in Sedona for Christmas, $6,800 for a week. They'd used my card and never paid me back for the deposit. I called the owner, canceled the booking, and flagged the card as compromised. That triggered a wave of declined payments on their end. They tried calling again. I still didn't answer. Then the tone shifted. The messages went from guilt-tripping to full-on rage. My mom texted me this paragraph-long rant about how ungrateful I was. How she and my dad sacrificed everything for me. That I'd always been the difficult one. That she was just trying to keep the family together, and I was the one who had finally torn it apart. No mention of the years I paid their utilities. No mention of the 3 times I bailed my brother out of debt. No mention of the emergency dental surgery my sister needed that I paid for in full. According to them, I'd always been the selfish one. Then came the email. My sister CC'd me on a legal notice. A lawyer she'd hired drafted a letter accusing me of withholding shared property. She was referring to the car I co-signed and still technically owned. Claimed I had no right to cancel her insurance or change the payment structure. She even said I was trying to financially ruin her out of spite. I sent it straight to my attorney, who confirmed the car, the payments, and the insurance were all legally under my business. She didn't have a leg to stand on. But the fact that she was willing to sue me just to force her way back into my wallet, that was the part that stunned me. Meanwhile, my dad called again. This time he left a voicemail trying to find a solution. Said he thought the whole thing had gotten out of hand, that we should all sit down like adults. He never apologized, just kept repeating how this wasn't how families were supposed to treat each other. And then he said it. We didn't think you'd actually do it. That was all I needed to hear. So it was a game. They thought cutting me off would scare me back into my place. They thought I'd come crawling, offering more help just to be accepted again. He hung himself with that one sentence. The next few days, everything escalated. The mortgage was officially flagged as delinquent. Late fees started stacking up. The car insurance lapsed and the registration was suspended. My sister's job required a car, so she had to start using her husband's, which was barely drivable. Then someone, probably my brother-in-law, started calling my business clients. They claimed I was being investigated for fraud, that I had mental health issues. They were trying to sabotage my income now, thinking I'd come back begging if I lost everything too. But I wasn't stupid. My lawyer traced the IPs back to my parents' Wi-Fi. We documented everything. Sent cease and desist letters. Warned them that defamation was a slippery slope. Still, they didn't stop. They just got sneakier. I realized then they weren't just mad. They were panicked. They thought they could control me even from the outside. They couldn't handle that their scapegoat had resources now. That I didn't need them. That they needed me. And they were about to find out just how much. I'd been holding one last card in my hand. Something they had no idea I still had access to. And I was ready to use it. There was one card left I hadn't played. One document I'd kept buried in a folder named something completely unrelated, tucked away so deeply on my hard drive I almost forgot it was there. But I never delete anything. 3 years ago, when things were spiraling for my parents, my dad unemployed, my mom juggling bills they couldn't pay, they called me in a panic. The bank was preparing to foreclose on the house. They begged me to help. And I did. Not just with money but with a legal solution. My attorney drafted the paperwork. I covered the mortgage and assumed 49% ownership of the home. It wasn't a loan. It was ownership. Legal. Binding. Signed by them. They barely even skimmed the documents. They just said, "Do whatever you have to do, Dolly." They thought I'd forget. Thought I'd never enforce it. Thought I'd always play the role of the distant, grateful daughter who should just be happy they still let her come around on holidays. So I filed for partition. It's a legal move that forces the sale of jointly owned property when the owners can't agree. It doesn't matter that they live in the house. It doesn't matter that it's their forever home. I co-own it. And now I want it out. My attorney overnighted the documents. They were served at 9:12 a.m. Thursday morning. By 9:14 my phone was ringing. First it was my mom. She didn't leave a voicemail. Then my dad. Then my sister. By noon I had a voicemail from my brother-in-law calling me delusional and saying I needed to get over myself. That afternoon my dad called again. He wasn't angry. Not at first. He sounded defeated. Said things had gone too far. Asked me what I wanted. Said they could talk about it, maybe restructure the arrangement. I said I already had. Then I hung up. By Friday things started to turn nasty. My aunt called me from Florida. She hadn't spoken to me in years. Told me my parents were devastated. That they were losing sleep. That my mother hadn't eaten in days. That they'd always loved me but I'd become cold. Unrecognizable. She asked me why I was doing this to them. I didn't answer her questions. Instead I asked her just one. Where were you when they told me I wasn't part of the family anymore? She went silent. And then the rumors started. I found out my mother had told her church group that I was mentally unwell. That I had fallen in with the wrong people in Seattle. That I'd been brainwashed by therapy or some podcast. She told people I was unstable and holding the family hostage for money. My sister went a step further. She claimed I stole from them. That I manipulated our parents into signing away the house. That I was always scheming. That she was going to fight it. They had no idea I kept everything. Not just the documents, the emails, the text messages, voice memos, even screenshots of the conversations where they begged me to handle the house, however I saw fit. I had receipts dating back years, so I let them talk. I let them post their passive-aggressive Bible verses. I let them play the victims in front of friends and extended family. I let them cry to anyone who would listen. Meanwhile, I met with my attorney again. We moved forward with listing the lake house. Another asset they, temporarily, put in my name when my dad needed to secure a loan. They never paid me back for that either. I cut the utilities, canceled the auto debits, transferred the car title into my name. Every thread they'd used to tie me down, I cut it, one by one. Then I pulled my final act. A quiet notice was sent to their mailbox. A full breakdown of the financial contributions I'd made to the family over the last 7 years. Every dollar, every bill, every favor. It was a thick packet. My lawyer made sure of that. On the last page in bold were 2 lines. This concludes all outstanding obligations. You are no longer entitled to any financial or legal support from Dolly. They didn't call after that. Not for a while. They just started talking louder. To anyone who would listen. Telling anyone who asked that I had lost my mind. That their youngest daughter had turned on them out of nowhere. That they loved me but I had chosen to walk away. And technically that part was true. But they never told anyone why. For a few weeks things went quiet. No calls, no messages. Just silence. But I knew better than to trust it. They weren't done. They were regrouping. I could feel it. Then one night I got a message from my cousin Leah. We weren't close, but she was one of the few people in the family who had never treated me like I was broken just for being different. Her message was short. You might want to talk to Grandma's lawyer. Something came up. I stared at it for a few minutes. Grandma had passed almost a year ago. We hadn't been close toward the end. Mostly because even in her last years she bought into the same story the rest of the family told about me. That I was stubborn, selfish, ungrateful. But she was still blood. And I showed up to her funeral alone, stood in the back and left before anyone could try to corner me. So when Leah mentioned a lawyer I was confused. I made the call. And that's when everything shifted. Turns out my grandmother left behind a letter. A handwritten one. Found in a locked box in the attic of her old house while it was being cleaned out. Addressed to me. The lawyer didn't read the whole thing out loud. Just said I should come in and hear it for myself. So I did. The letter was 6 pages long. Dated 2 years before she died. And it changed everything I thought I knew. She knew what was happening. She knew the way my parents treated me. He saw how they used me. She even mentioned the time she tried to confront my mother about it and got shut out. Apparently she had tried to include me in her will in a bigger way, but there were pressures from the rest of the family to leave everything to the oldest grandchild, my cousin Jake. But there was one thing they didn't know about. A separate life insurance policy. One she set up when I was 12 in my name with herself as the policyholder. It wasn't huge, but it was enough. Enough to do something meaningful. And it was mine. No one else knew it existed. I sat there in the lawyer's office stunned. Not just because of the money, but because for the first time in years I felt like someone in my family had actually seen me. Really seen me. And cared. The next day I got another surprise. My sister's lawsuit against me? Withdrawn. No explanation, no apology. Just gone. That's when I knew. They'd found out. They must have heard about the letter. Maybe Leah slipped up. Maybe the lawyer made a call he shouldn't have. Either way, now they were backpedaling. But it was too late. Then out of nowhere came the apology. Not a phone call. Not a visit. A group email. My parents, my siblings, even my brother-in-law, all copied in. They said they regretted how things had unfolded. That words were said in anger. That family is more important than money. I almost laughed. They thought a few paragraphs of half-baked remorse would reverse everything. But I didn't reply. Instead, I made a donation. Half of the life insurance payout went to a women's legal advocacy fund in my grandmother's name. The other half I put into a new project. An emergency fund for people stuck in toxic family situations, especially when finances keep them trapped. The press release about the fund went live 2 days later. It made small local news. And then somehow it made its way into my parents' church bulletin. By the weekend the phone started ringing again. This time they were livid. They said I was making them look bad. That I had twisted everything. That I had weaponized Grandma's death. But they had no legal standing anymore. No control. No leverage. They were spiraling. And then came the real blow. A quiet call from their lawyer to mine. My parents were considering filing a suit to recover emotional damages. Because I'd destroyed the family. That was the moment I decided to finish this. I knew they were petty. I just didn't realize how far they'd go until the lawsuit hit my inbox. Filed in our county court with actual legal language claiming intentional emotional harm, destruction of familial reputation, and, my favorite, financial sabotage via coercive manipulation. They were serious. They hired some half-baked attorney who probably thought he was walking into an easy payday. He had no idea I had my own legal team on retainer. Not because I was paranoid, but because you learn early in business that people love to rewrite history when money's involved. My lawyer, Jessica, barely flinched. She just sent me a list. Bank records, signed contracts, text messages, insurance agreements, emails, receipts, and property titles. I had everything. Organized, dated, categorized. They wanted war. They got a surgical dissection. During discovery, we subpoenaed communication records. My mom had been emailing extended family for months saying I was unstable, vengeful, and unhinged. My sister sent a PDF to her HR department saying I abused a shared financial trust in case it ever came up during a background check. My dad? He tried to contact one of my clients directly to warn them about me. It all got entered into evidence. Then came the depositions. They had to sit across from me, swear to tell the truth, and explain under oath why they thought they had a case. My mom cracked first. Said I emotionally abandoned the family. The court reporter didn't even pause. Just typed it out like it made sense. When asked about the house ownership, she said she never knew she signed anything giving me co-ownership. We presented the signed agreement. Her initials on every page. She started crying. The judge didn't even blink. My sister's deposition was worse. She insisted I manipulated her into putting the car in my name. My lawyer asked a single question. Did she ever make a payment on that car in 2 years? She sat silent for almost a full minute. Then muttered something about being busy with the kids. The judge asked for a break. But I wasn't angry. Not anymore. Watching them squirm, watching them try to lie their way out of something I had documented from every angle, it didn't make me feel triumphant. It just made me tired. Because it was always the same cycle. Them breaking things, me fixing them, them pretending nothing ever happened. Only now the court saw it too. A week later, during a pretrial hearing, the judge strongly recommended settlement. He warned them that a trial would likely end in a counterclaim for defamation, harassment, and financial damages. They caved. But they tried to make it look like a truce. They offered to drop the case if we all agreed to move on as a family. My attorney laughed out loud in the conference room. Our terms were simple. Full withdrawal of the lawsuit. Written apologies to every business and professional contact they had slandered me to. Cease and desist from all further contact. A formal statement acknowledging that I had provided financial support for over a decade. Immediate sale of all jointly owned assets. They signed. Reluctantly. And then they did what they always do. They spun the story. Started telling people we'd had a beautiful reconciliation. That we'd worked it out behind the scenes. My mom told her prayer group that God had restored the family. My sister posted a cryptic quote on Instagram about forgiveness being a circle. They were terrified of looking like the ones who lost. But the truth was they didn't just lose me. They lost the version of me who ever cared what they thought. And I made it official. I changed my last name. Not to hide, not to run, but to choose something for myself. A clean break. No hyphen, no tribute. Just mine. The final document came in the mail the same day their formal retraction letters went out. It was poetic. And just when I thought the dust might finally settle, just when I started to imagine life without them in the background, my cousin forwarded me a screenshot. Facebook post. My mother holding an old photo of me captioned, "Our daughter won't speak to us. We pray for her healing every day. Please keep our family in your hearts." 1,000 likes. Hundreds of comments. People from their church calling me lost. Saying they'd always known Dolly was troubled. That they were praying for my soul. They turned themselves into martyrs. And I didn't respond. Not because I didn't want to, but because for the first time in my life I didn't need to. The truth was already out. And I was finally free. I used to imagine cutting them off would feel like flipping a switch. Cold, clean, immediate. I thought I'd wake up one day and feel nothing. But grief isn't that simple even when the people you're grieving are alive. The story they started telling spread fast. Old neighbors, distant relatives, even former teachers from my hometown started popping up online, commenting under my mom's Facebook posts. Messages like, "No family is perfect," or, "You raised her right, she'll come back around." She'd reply to every single one, all vague and holy and full of carefully chosen heartbreak. "We never stopped loving her. We're just waiting on her heart to soften. Sometimes all you can do is pray." They made me the villain in a story I didn't write. But I wasn't interested in defending myself anymore. Not to people who'd already chosen their side. There were days when I almost picked up the phone. Usually late at night when I passed a photo in an old drawer, or heard a song that reminded me of Christmases when we still faked being okay. I'd scroll through my contacts, stare at Mom, still saved there, still untouched. But I wouldn't call. Because I knew what would happen. She'd act like nothing ever happened. She'd pretend the lawsuit didn't exist, pretend she never said I was cut off, pretend I hadn't had to erase myself just to survive being related to them. She'd talk about the weather. Or ask if I'd seen something on the news. And I would feel it all closing in again. That slow, sick feeling that always came with being pulled back into their world. I wasn't going back. Not this time. After the lawsuit, the settlement, the public lies, I still stayed quiet. And that silence became louder than anything I could have said. They kept trying. Not directly. They'd send messages through people. A mutual friend would call to say my dad wasn't doing well. An old neighbor would message that my sister just had another baby, and it's a shame you're not in the photo. But no one ever apologized. No one ever said the truth out loud. Because doing that would mean giving up the story they built. The story where I was the cold daughter who left for no reason. The one who changed her name and turned her back on blood. The one who owes them. I don't. They didn't raise me. They used me. And when I stopped being useful, they punished me for it. So I moved. Quietly. I relocated to a new state. No announcement, no dramatic post. I didn't need applause. I just needed peace. I found a job I love. Built a community that doesn't treat love like a currency. I go on hikes. I read books again. I sleep through the night without waking up angry. But I still think about them sometimes. Not with hate. Not even regret. Just sadness. Sadness for what could have been. Sadness for the version of me who spent years trying to earn love that should have been given freely. And I think that's the worst part, not that I lost them, but that I never really had them to begin with. Now, when people ask about my family, I tell the truth in the simplest way I can. I say, we're not close. And I leave it there. Because some endings don't need revenge. Or reunions. Or redemption. Some just need to be final. And this one is. Now, holidays are different. Quiet, uncomplicated. I spend them with friends who feel more like family than mine ever did. We make too much food, we laugh without walking on eggshells, and no one expects anything in return. Every now and then someone new will ask why I don't visit my parents. I just smile, change the subject. The truth isn't something I carry around anymore. It's tucked away, sealed shut like a chapter I've already read too many times. And if they ever show up at my door again with tears or apologies or excuses, I'll listen. But I won't unlock anything. Some doors stay closed. Not out of bitterness, but because peace lives on the other side.